Better late than never, right? That's how we do our wrap-ups. It's like mid-February. It's still snowing. There's still a lot going on. I finally have had the time to reflect on my January reading. So in the month of January, I read 5 books, and one of them I have passed along to a friend already, so we can talk about that. And I'm sorry if this is really distracting. How you film in a ring light with glasses is beyond me at this point. It was really hard to film last time without them though, so I'm sorry if it is really bothersome to you. I will try to like move them as I go. But I'm just gonna jump into the 5 books because I'd like to talk about them with a little bit more detail than usual. Because that's what this year is, people. It's all the things that feel right for me to do. We'll see how it goes. The very first book I picked up this year was Pages for You. And this is a book that I've been wanting to read for a really long time. And absolutely set the tone for reading for me this year. One, queer literature is some of my favorite of all time. It's pretty much always a win for me. Pretty rare that I don't like them, though some foreshadowing for the rest of this video. But this particular female-female romance was really up my alley. For some reason, I really like books that are in like a university setting and like detail a student experience. This book details a romance between a student and not like a teacher. She's not like it's not like that naughty. She is a little bit older, and just sort of like the ups and downs of what they go through and like the different things they experience to me felt very like real. It felt like I was like watching a film of the experience in my mind because I could just picture it all so clearly. This is one of the books that has already made me feel like I need the second book, which I have already purchased and can't wait to read. I also want to put out there that like I'm not great with romance novels. It's just not fully my thing, and I would categorize this as a type of romance, and it's not like gushy to the point of what am I reading. For me, that's how I rate romance novels. So really loved this. This is a book that like later in life I would go back and reread. By later in life I mean like probably this year again. It was that good. The second book I read was Sugar Run, which was kindly gifted to me by Algonquin Books. I'll insert a picture of it here. And I have to say, maybe this doesn't happen often to me where I don't like love a book. I definitely pride myself in being able to pick books for myself, and Sugar Run was one that I was really looking forward to at the end of last year. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get that book. And it just really it missed the mark a bit for me. The pacing was just a little bit rough. I'm realizing that I'm very character driven, and I just didn't really like fall into it with any of the characters. And having read a female-female romance that like kicked off my year in a stellar way, this female-female romance was just not exactly it. And I did appreciate like the cultural differences and like the a lot of like the socioeconomic and lifestyle differences and just like differences in what they went through. And I can identify the vast difference from Pages for You. And to me, like, even if that book was stellar and they're kind of similar, like Sugar Run should be able to stand on its own. And for me, it just really didn't. And that doesn't mean that it won't for you. I could see many people really enjoying it. It just didn't quite meet what I was hoping for with that book. The next book I read was, it was kind of unexpected for me, but it is The Elephant in the Room. And this was sent to me by Simon Books, I believe, I'm pretty sure. But like, I don't remember giving them my address. So how I acquired this book is a little bit beyond me. And I'm so glad that I did. It's a memoir. It's so interesting to me because I feel like the topic of weight and body image definitely comes up in my family often. And unfortunately, it's not in a context that's like very validating or inspiring in any kind of way. It's usually in a judgmental and not so spectacular kind of way. This book, I feel like, brings you through the realness of all those different feelings and the struggle of like living in a societal norm of a place that really values body image in a very specific kind of way and feeling like you can't meet those standards. Tommy Tomlinson's voice is one that I wish I had heard before this book and will continue to seek out now after reading this book, because there's just something so human and real and like almost like nostalgic feeling about his writing. And I like blew through this. This wasn't on my radar before I received this, and that's like really upsetting to me. I wish that it was, and I hope that it's on your radar now, because this was a really fantastic memoir. And I think like regardless of your relationship with weight, body image, this was one worth giving time to for sure. Next book I read, I'm so like upset with myself with how long it has taken me to read it, because I've read other works by James Baldwin and this one just took me too long, and I feel like icky about myself that it might even be that like the movie was coming out that was like, and like everyone's been reading it, that motivated me to read it, and like I'm just disappointed in myself. But the book is If Beale Street Could Talk, and this was wonderful. And again, like my biggest regret is waiting this long to read it. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend doing so. I feel really glad that they made this into a movie, and I hope that this brings about the attention that this book deserves. I just think like, gosh, the like weight of this book, it's like so fantastically written and like so hard that this is definitely like the reality of things. And this is one of those books that I wish I read in like a buddy read or like a group kind of setting, because it requires more like conversation than isolation. And I feel a little bit like I need to have more conversations about this book, just because to me, like this book, An American Marriage, like those books all deal with a partner that is incarcerated and wrongly incarcerated, and then how their partner then copes with life with them being incarcerated, and that's a lot, and it's so much of what I'm positive happens all the time, and it would be different if it wasn't all through like racial profiling. So this book I think definitely set the tone for me for some of the books that I hope to read this year, even like in the month of February. Spoiler, has inspired some books for February for me. So really thankful that I read this book this month, and like still kicking myself for how long it took. But I'll let it go for now. The last book I read in the month of January is actually a manga, and it is My Brother's Husband. Again, like if it's queer literature, I want to read it. So I read this because of how much positive praise volume 2 was getting, and I love like the art in it. Manga's like kind of hit or miss for me. Like sometimes the art is just like a little bit too not my style, and this art really met my needs, and like the story really enticed me. The story was like really what sold this whole thing for me, and I loved it. Immediately bought volume 2, and I'm really excited to read that very soon. With that, if you have any like LGBTQIAP plus literature that you'd like to recommend, please send it my way. That's like one of my favorite topics and areas to read about, and probably some of my most recommended reads. I have like a highlight of it on my Instagram just because I read so much of it, and it's pretty important to me. So yeah, these are the books that I read in the month of January. plus Sugar Run. And I'd love to know your thoughts if you read any of these or if you're planning to. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about some of these. Wrap-ups are always hard because I want to tell you enough, but I don't want to spoil it. So if you would like to know more, I'm always happy to answer more questions. And yeah, that's all I have. Oh, one thing I wanted to say is that I have started a hashtag on Instagram for my book reviews, which is just hashtag brittanyfiiasco reviews. And I have like a book reviews highlight on Instagram, but just to keep better track this year, I wanted to start that hashtag so that, one, I can hold myself more accountable for doing wrap-ups and like following what I'm actually reading. And I also want to be more consistent about writing actual reviews on the Instagram platform. I often write reviews on Goodreads, and I'll post like little snippets and thoughts on like Twitter and things like that. All my social is below. But I'm not fantastic at following up on my blog, which is on a WordPress, and it's usually like I have to have like a stroke of inspiration to turn to that. And Instagram, I don't want to be posting about books that I'm not going to tell you about at the end. And I did that a lot last year. Like I posted books that I was reading and just didn't, whatever. And anyways, for 2019, it's all about real, honest, upfront, and immediate reviews for me. So that's the hashtag I'm using. And that's what I'm hoping for with the rest of my wrap-up. I'd love to hear any feedback you have or anything like that. I am going to be continuously making changes throughout these first few months, so I want to get a feel for like what feels right for me. And is the ring light with my glasses a disaster? I don't know. It's probably going to drive me nuts editing, so please be honest if it drives you nuts too. But with that, I am going to go continue living my life in the snow. So I will see you in the next one. Bye. It's so cold.